Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Context is King. I'm Rebecca Brayton, and with me as always is WatchMojo founder and CEO Ashkan Karbasfrooshan to discuss Marc Benioff coming out against capitalism-ish.
Join the club?
Yeah. So obviously this is a topic that you covered in Fox and the Hen House. Marc Benioff is the latest billionaire to come out to talk about capitalism in an opinion piece in the New York Times called "We Need a New Capitalism." So you were expecting this, for there to be more guys like this to come out. Is it sincere? And frankly, would these guys, these super rich guys and their companies, gotten to where they did get to if they had followed their own advice?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I think it's sincere, but I don't necessarily think, and Marc Benioff, founder, chairman of Salesforce, I think it's sincere. It may be driven more by fear than an actual altruistic desire.
Fear of what?
Fear of like the French Revolution, like Russian Revolution. Maybe not to that end and that extreme with guillotines and their heads rolling. But you're seeing
maybe not.
Probably not. Forecast says unlikely. But there's a lot of discontent. There's a lot of unhappiness. There's a lot of inequality, and I think eventually people do crazy things. Why do you have gated communities in the U.S.? You don't have gated communities.
Stand your ground laws.
Yeah. Why do you have all that? Because there's, people that eventually, like the U.S. is the greatest country in the world in many ways, but the highs are higher than anywhere else, and the lows are lower than anywhere else. So, well, not really, but you know what I mean. That
yeah.
So I think Marc Benioff and, Ray Dalio and many of these other billionaires, it is sincere in the sense that as you get older, your priorities change. You're driven less by money. You're driven more by other things and the greater good and yada yada. So I think
if you have money, you're driven less by money.
Exactly. No, but it's like hey, I've said this many times. I left Ashkan. I was like I want to build something. I want to see if I could be an entrepreneur. It wasn't like I went and I got a job that paid me more because I wasn't driven by money then. I was driven by like kind of this drive to prove the naysayers, so to speak. But then what happens is once you start saving money, then you're like, hey, maybe I'm going to go write a book and get on a book tour, which is what he did. He kind of wrote a book called Trailblazers. Is that the name of the book? And in any case, so I do think it's sincere. What the cause of it is, I think, is more paranoia and greed in general, not greed and fear in general for all of these, although there is a percentage that's valid and they see, hey, a lot of people can't buy groceries. But no, I think we should stop the charade like right now. The only reason why these companies, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Salesforce, Oracle, Microsoft, you name it, the only reason these companies grew that big is because they totally went to the extreme. 100% greed, 100%, steal the everybody's lunch, eat everybody's lunch. This mindset that has created this like inequality now. So where I just kind of roll my eyes, even though I think it's good and we need to have these conversations, is you only were in this position because you did some very shady things. And I've had this problem earlier on. I had this challenge where we're not obviously Salesforce. We're on like a nice little lifestyle business. It's a boutique business. We're tiny. We're a rounding error. But this was one of the many reasons I had a challenge raising money from these investors, because these investors, for one, they wanted to replace the whole founding team. They wanted to bring their own people, which I was like, makes no sense. But two, they like objected to us literally, wanting to have full-time employees who had like a paid vacation and health plan. They were like,
that is not the way the industry is going.
It's not exactly. The industry goes towards like, just be a freelancer, they view creating content as a side hustle. So it is bullshit. And what I just find a bit like, not revolting, but frustrating is none of these guys are going to come out and say that. Bill Gates is a wonderful human being now. Bill Gates and Melinda, fantastic people doing so much. The man saved more people from malaria than like anybody else. But at what point are we going to say, hey, you only got into this dominant position because you did a lot of anti-competitive things? Why don't we have that conversation now? Obviously, it's a bit of a Debbie Downer moment. But so that's where I go like, sure, it may be sincere, but there's no way that these guys could stand up there and say, let's be fair. Because when you talk about stakeholders, when you talk about community, well, there's your competitors.
Well, maybe they're doing it out of guilt.
Absolutely
Or like just
no.
a way to kind of absolve themselves of all these shady things that they've done up to now.
Well, absolutely. It's like these folks back throughout history who did some very, very bad things, but then they would kind of give a donation to the church to kind of win their good name back. Absolutely. It's just a different form of it. Mark Zuckerberg, all these execs that leave we've said it, Mark Zuckerberg, his entire resume is essentially stealing from the Winklevosses and coming up with an app that rates how hot girls are at Harvard, to Beacon and this whole other litany of garbage that a lot of the press wrote up in adulation, on the way up, but now all of a sudden they object to. You created this monster, right? And so for me, it's just funny because we run what is ultimately a very small business, and I get it. But the only reason why I open up about it is I go, well, that's the trade-off. If you want to build these billion-dollar businesses that are, and content's very different than tech, but especially in tech where there is an insane amount of wealth that is poured onto the number one or number two, the only reason why these companies can do this is because of their basically bad behavior. So I think it's great that they're talking all this good stuff about, helping out people that are less fortunate. But I think if you really, really want to show leadership, I don't know what you can do, but you should also kind of say that, look, the kinds of techniques that allowed, me, Marc Benioff, me, Mark Zuckerberg, me, Bill Gates, to build this like super crazy competitive business are probably not healthy either. So until they say that, I roll my eyes.
So what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments, and we will see you next time.